Thanks, Ken.
You're welcome.
You guys have a really great community here today. I was welcomed with such loving open arms. It felt like just being at home anywhere, so I'm Josiah. I'm young. I'm about 25 now. A couple of years ago, I had a really tough year, just dealing with my own personal identity and just emotional things. And God did kind of call me into this time of healing and prayer and being ministered to, where He then gave me this vision to start a young adult group for not only just one church, but whoever so welcome, multiple churches. So right now we are meeting in Roseville High School, down in Roseville, obviously, and we just meet with different young adults from different groups. We're small right now, but we're praying that God will fill the whole place up. It's a huge space that we were kind of offered, and it's been an amazing time, and everyone's been really enjoying it. So we're just trying to keep our young adults together, so they don't get lost in the world. There's so many things going on in their lives and in the world that are just so confusing and hard to navigate, that we want to help do that together collectively as a group. So that's our vision and mission, is just to keep people together and to help spread the love of God through the young adults. We're all gonna be climbing ladders and in positions and places that we want to make sure that the young people are taken care of, to where they're right. We're walking in right minds. Our motto, or the scripture, one of the scriptures we go off of is God doesn't give us a spirit of timidity, but of love, power, and of sound mind. So those are our values that we kind of carry along with us. So we're just empowering the young adults, and we're networking with different young adults to make sure everyone gets plugged in somewhere, and that's kind of what we do. And today I have to share with you a message that I shared a couple months ago with them. But God always kind of gives you a burning message, for a year, or however long. He gives you that message that just strikes you so much. And right now and this message might even not be new to anyone, but it's new to me, and it's new to just to my culture and the culture of young adults. And he kind of bringing forth to the surface just different things that kind of are in old traditions and older fashion, but bringing them in the light of today's world, where media and social media and technology are rampant on the rise, and they're kind of causing disconnects among people and among the young adults. So but even in smaller circles, they could affect them as well. And it's so simple. I'm going to be talking about the table today, and this message is called Table Things. And I'll jump right into it. I'll pray for you guys, and we'll jump right in. So Lord, I just pray for New Hope Christian Church, God. I pray that you would just bless them in all their endeavors and all of the things and events they have going on in their community and their outreaches, God. I just pray that you would just continue to bless them, and bless this stand and the worship instruments, and anyone who comes through this door, that they would just be met like I did today, with just loving open arms, and they'd be shown the love of Christ today. And I pray this in your name. Amen. So the table is an interesting piece of furniture, but it kind of goes amiss sometimes. It goes without saying. Every house has one, but not every house appreciates one. And even I remember this scene from the Passion of the Christ, when they ate lower on the ground. So I think it's just this really small scene, but Jesus makes himself a table that stands up like a Western European table, and his mom goes, "What is that? That's never gonna catch on." But I think that's so funny that is how the tables that we see today are made. So the table is sturdy. It's where we eat. It's a place where we all get sustenance and nourishment and life, and it's somewhere where is so central and relational. It's such an important piece that we sometimes don't think about how important it truly is, like to our homes and to our lives. Like I mentioned that scene from the Passion of the Christ, but even I think Hollywood gets this right like all the time. Like some of the most important, and I love movies. I'm a huge movie fan. Some of the most important, interesting scenes in movies happen like at a dinner table. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, or you can't like think of any, it's everywhere. The next time you watch a movie, wait for it, because if they're sitting at a dinner table, something's gonna go down. Something's about to happen. And this could be anything. It could be positive or negative like things, but something's going to happen and it's going to be amazing. Like I'll just recall some old movies that I grew up watching with my mother. Mrs. Doubtfire. There's a couple of scenes in there where they're at a dinner table where Robin Williams is dressed up like this old granny, like trying to nanny these kids, and he's trying not to be figured out by all these people, and the apex of the movie happens at the end where they're all like around a dinner table, like in the middle of a restaurant, and he gets caught on fire, a bunch of stuff happens, but like it's a whole ordeal, but it's an awesome scene because it's like all that happened at the table, like he got outed, his secrets came out, like, but also like there was some, there's some tension, but so it was just a weird scene, but it was a good one too. There's another movie called American Beauty. I don't know if anyone's seen this one before, but Kevin Spacey, he's like, it's kind of a dark comedy, but there's a scene in the movie where he tells his wife like, oh yeah, I quit my job today and it was the best thing that ever happened to me and all this stuff, and he's laughing about it, but she's like, what, how are we going to afford this house and everything, and I don't know what happens. Tensions rise and there's plates throwing and stuff starts happening, but it all revolves around that table. And we can go on and on describing like these different scenes, but Hollywood uses this kind of thematic way of setting a scene in an interesting way. And we'll get into how this all connects very, very soon, but they use it as a tool to describe what happens relationally between people. They build tension at the table, or they'll show how characters interact with each other, how relationships are either forming or drifting apart. It's really a tool to like set the story and the characters like in motion. So that's why I'm like, if you look for the table scenes, like pay attention, stuff's gonna happen. Like a subtle glance or a gesture becomes more impactful, more like powerful in those scenes. So I encourage you just to watch out for those. Those are good. In the book It's Not What You Think by Jefferson Bethke, which I really recommend to everyone. It's a fantastic book. He walks people through kind of these things in Christianity that we all see, but we might not all think about, and he like elaborates them in deep kind of a modern way. The way he phrases things and the way he presents them is awesome for young and old. He kind of just presents Christianity in a way that's like, hey, have you thought about this before? He talks about the way we're image bearers and the way we are just how the Sabbath is set up and we take for granted, and how it's just a time to enjoy the Lord and not just to do nothing. So that book is really good, and it's called It's Not What You Think by Jefferson Bethke, and the subtitle is like Why Christianity Isn't Just Going to Heaven When You Die. Amazing book. It's really good. I've read it like twice because it was just so impactful, and I constantly take notes from it. But he ends off the whole book in chapter 9 talking about just this whole subject, like how the table is a sacred place to meet and to gather. And he describes other cultures and how they use the table, and how there's a story of this, I think he was an Israeli Jew, and he accidentally had killed like an Islamic or Pakistani, like a son who was deaf, and he didn't know what to do. He was grieved. He believed in the Lord and just was like, I need to do something. So he extended like a hand and he said, let's meet. with his family, and that was super highly dangerous. And they were like, his family, his friends were like, what are you doing? What are you, like, this is an intense thing. Like, what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to meet with them. And he met with them at, a table, and it was customary to have like coffee, like we have coffee all the time, but this was like a serious coffee meeting, The whole family's there, and he's meeting with them, and he's looking for one sign at the table. He's looking for the head of the household to pick up his coffee and drink it for the first time. And he's waiting, and they're there, and the head of the house gets up and he walks over to him. He's like, whoa, what's going to happen? And he looks at him, and he gives him a big hug and like of gratitude, and he takes the cup and he lifts it up and he drinks it, and then the whole atmosphere of the place changes. And it just became a time of celebration, forgiveness, and of love, and it's like a scene out of a movie. Honestly, like it was deeply impactful. In other cultures like that, the table is deeply sacred. It's basically whoever's at your table is your family at that exact moment. It's a time to welcome people in, and to give a sense of honor and hospitality to those who are there. And even it's your responsibility as the head of the household, if you're holding a dinner or a place of gathering at the table, like you're responsible to protect everyone at that table with your life. If someone walked in the door to do damage or to harm, it's your job to put yourself in front and protect them. And that's really an amazing, like, massive thing that we're just like, oh, we're just having dinner, we're just serving people, but it's huge in other places. In our culture, things tend to have been forgotten. Like, things are more fast and efficient. We want, and I'm not saying everyone, but in American culture, we tend to want our food now, faster, more efficient. We have things to do. We don't have time to sit at the table with our family anymore. Oh, we're bored at the table. Let's have dinner in front of the TV, maybe with our phones in hand now. And this is widespread. It's no longer about, like, let's talk about what happened throughout the day. Let's debrief. Let's get to what happened. Kids are going through times in high school that I'm hearing stuff from youth leaders and different kids that are like, what, you're going through that like now? Like, it's incredibly amazing how kind of fast the progression of the teenage years are going. And they're going through deep emotional things that like not even I at 25 was even prepared to deal with. And I believe this time, even like a dinner, like family dinner, which it's weird that's called family dinner, and you'd think that if you're having dinner, it should be with your family, But even family dinner is, now typically one day a week on a Sunday or whatever, and you have to schedule a time to everyone to meet there. Because if not, everyone's just having dinner in their rooms, or like I said, in front of a TV. Growing up, I remember some of the best memories I had with my family were around the table, Thanksgiving time, or my dad would, every Sunday I would wake up to the smell of bacon, which was the most amazing thing, and I would come downstairs and he would have the whole table already set. He's like, come on, let's eat. So I'm like, sweet. Saturday mornings were so important to our family because we just got to kind of, we fellowship with one another. We got to know each other, and we got to share laughs and, just talk about deep things at the table. But as years went on, my dad got kind of more like my dad, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. He just got more in a groove of his own thinking and own ways, and I love my dad, but we stopped doing that. And, we had to cook our own breakfast, or, we would have dinner every night, but then it became like I loved eating at the table. I still do. I do it all the time. People ask me, oh, why don't you come eat in here with us? Like, that's what they would say. like, why don't you come eat one here with us, watching TV, Seinfeld or something. And I would be like, man, I really don't want that. Like, you try to like ask someone how things are going, but they're like, no. Jerry's talking right now. He's about to make a joke. And that upset me, but it kind of, it caused me to think, like, what's going on? What's happening? Why aren't we doing this anymore? And it only got to light, like, maybe a year ago, where I started seeing just the way the household, how people were framing their houses. Like, living rooms are now centered around the TV. Everyone's decorating their house, making sure the TV looks great, so that people can watch it, or, the table just gets stacked with, envelopes, newspapers, bills, all that kind of things. Serves a different purpose now, just like a junk drawer that everyone can see. And when I noticed this, I knew there was something going on, but I knew it was something spiritual too, so I dove deeper and to look into this, and this is where all this is coming from. But it's super special to everyone to have this time. The table and the way it's even constructed is interesting. Like, everyone's on the same level, everyone's looking at each other in the eye. It's a deep and intimate thing. It's something that everyone craves but doesn't really take into account to think about. And in the book Living into Focus, which I'm reading now, and I'm kind of new to it, I'm picking through it, but there's this chapter called, or this little section of it called, there's too many cooks, not enough kitchen. And the author, Arthur Boers, he explains that, like, he didn't really think that his kitchen was important, but he explains that it's like the hearth, it's the heart of the whole house. And those that have small kitchens understand the need to have a bigger one, over time. And he kind of stumbled upon this when his wife's like, we need to redo the kitchen. He's like, I really don't want to do. He's just thinking, this is a lot of money, But when they finally did redo the kitchen, he saw that how it actually changed to the whole family dynamic. They spent more time in there. They prepared snacks and meals together as a family, even the kids. They had people over more often. Like, there was something going on in his own household that he recognized, like the kitchen, the table, it's all connected. It's all relational. It's an important, deep thing that his family truly needed to undergo. I just pulled from that. I'm like, oh man, that's like exactly what I was talking about like a couple months ago. So I had to like throw that in there. The whole book, Living into Focus, is about focal things, like pulling out what really matters and what's really important and thinking about it and like living in it. And it's a really good book, and I'll tell you how it is when I finish it. I'm only on like chapter 3. But I recommend it. It's a really good book. It's just about living for what matters and not being distracted by what's out there now. And the author, he just really talks about how much he loves hiking and things, and it's hard for me to like get through that, but having those visions of like, oh yeah, nature, like I remember nature, when I'm just sitting on the couch or whatever. It's really amazing, and it really just pulls to light everything that we come to miss in our lives. Now for the theology. Jesus knows how powerful the table is and how sacred it is. He was ridiculed more than anything for dining with sinners. They always threw that out there. Why are you having dinner with them? Why are you partying with them? Why this? Why that? It was so important for the leaders of that time to have like a face, to have to feel holier, to be set apart from all that they didn't understand that these things were constructed to dine with other people, to have relationship, to bring together people. And Jesus knew immediately, like, dude, I'm doing this because this is it, this is the way. Even God gives the Jewish people Passover and communion. They go hand in hand. People don't realize the Last Supper in the Bible is actually the feast of Passover, which is a whole feast. It takes days to prepare. You have to welcome this lamb into your house. Probably don't give it a name, because of 4 days later, you're going to kill that lamb and eat it. But the last thing he did with his disciples before he went to the cross to do the most important thing in human history that had so much deep theological background to it, but he didn't, get on a pulpit and invite thousands into a stadium to tell what he was going to do. He didn't share with them deep theological truths or walk them like cover to cover, through the Old Testament, how he's fulfilling everything. He just simply had a meal with his best friends. And, the focal point of that was so like rooted in like love and just like a deep sense of just grace and love and mercy and all this. It just reminds, and some of us don't even experience communion like that. We experience Thanksgiving like that every year with a huge turkey and games and, football games and parades and all of that. But we don't see that around, the time to remember Christ's sacrifice. Imagine communion as a whole Thanksgiving feast, where it takes days to prepare and it's delicious and it's God honoring and it's amazing. And then you take, the bread and the wine and you make this whole sacred like thing about it. And it's like, whoa, this is so deep. It's so powerful. Now imagine like someone invites you to a feast, like where, come on, we're gonna eat all this food, we're gonna play a bunch of games, we're gonna laugh and have community and share music with each other. And you get in the building, it's like, it's strange, all the, there's no tables, there's just rows stacked in front of each other. You only stare into the back of someone's head. You sing a couple songs together, if the music's not too loud. You listen to a word from someone that you barely know, but still can connect with. And then the weirdest thing happens. Imagine this feast comprised of like, everyone gets a little piece of bread, a little piece of turkey, and you eat it, and the sparkling cider goes around and you drink it, and then you hear someone say like, that was the best feast I've ever had. It really, really spoke to me. It was so good. You're like, what? What's going on? Like, this was the feast the whole time? Like, and that's how we've modernized communion. And that's how we've modernized, like, we've manufactured it. We've made it faster and more efficient when, it means something greater, something deeper. Where we take a feast and we make it a happy meal, Or it's wild to think that, Jesus' whole ministry really, like, the apex of it was at this feast, and then we take it and we make it a piece of bread and a little cup. And I'm not saying it's bad, I'm saying that there's more to it that we really think, and these things tend to stick with us, and we just go about our everyday. But that Thanksgiving feast, that communion meal, it's bigger than we expect it to be. Jesus also points out the importance of the table when he invites Zacchaeus into his, the message of Zacchaeus. If you know it, then you know it. But if you don't, then I'll try to read it to you. In Luke 19, 1 through 10, we meet Zacchaeus, and he's a very rich tax collector, but the whole town hates him. So it says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector, and was wealthy. He had a lot of fat stacks, basically. He wanted to see who Jesus was, and he was a short man, and he could not see him because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached that spot, he looked up and saw him. I don't know how he knew his name, but he did. Jesus says, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house tonight. So he came down, and at once he was welcomed gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be a guest of a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood up and he said, Lord, look, Lord, Here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and I have wait 1 second. Now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay back 4 times that much. Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what he has lost. So Zacchaeus is a wealthy man. He just wants to see Jesus. And Jesus automatically sees this and like, come down, like, I'm going to stay at your house tonight. And this is like a truly honorable thing. Like, he wants to meet with him. He wants to break bread and share at Zacchaeus' table. And that moves Zacchaeus' heart so much that he changes the whole community. Like, these people probably have nothing. He's cheated and robbed them out of everything that they own for some money in his own pocket. And he says, today I'm giving back everything 4 times as much. All because Jesus said, I want to eat with you tonight. I want to share a meal. That's powerful. And it's truly crazy to think, like, who are we not inviting into our homes? Who could possibly change a whole community just by sharing a meal with them? It's incredible. There's another story in Luke about 2 guys on the road to Emmaus, sorry. And I'll just spark note this one. Jesus, basically, it's after his death and resurrection, and he starts walking on this road, and he finds 2 guys. And these 2 guys are like wondering what just happened in the events of Jesus' death, and they're talking about it. And without knowing who he was, Jesus began to walk with them and to basically explain that, like, oh man, the Messiah was supposed to die the whole time. You didn't know this? And they're like, what? What are you talking about? And he's like, let me share with you. And they walk far. I don't even know how long, but they walk almost to Emmaus. And Jesus explains cover to cover who he is without even saying who. Like, they didn't recognize him. They didn't know who he was. He was in a different form. And they're like, man, this guy's really saying something, but it's not clicking, They didn't get it. So Jesus, I don't know if he weaseled his way, but he definitely said, hey, I'm going further. And it was an honor, it was honorable to say, oh, if you're walking with someone and they're going further and it's late, invite them in your house. It's an honorable thing to do for those that you respect. So they said, hey, why don't you come stay with us and have dinner with us? And Jesus is like, okay, cool, and he still is teaching them. And then at the end of this story, it says that he broke bread and he passed it to them, and he blessed it, and then their eyes were open and they realized that he was Jesus, that he was the Son of God, and they were like, didn't our hearts burn in us when he was talking with us on the road? And it's a weird story, because they're like, man, wouldn't you recognize him, like, if you saw him? But I think that's the whole point, especially in our American culture. We're these guys on the road, and we think the more that we can know, the more Jesus can tell us about who he is, the more we will know, and the closer we'll get to him. We think about it like, man, if I can just know more facts, if I can just, know more about God, then I'll be closer to God. But this story says the exact opposite. It says, like, the more you know God, the less you will know God, kind of thing. These guys knew the whole theology of the whole Bible, which wasn't written yet, and they still didn't get it until they sat at the table with Jesus and he broke bread. And he blessed it and he said, this is who I am. And they're like, whoa, everything clicked in that moment, because it was a relational thing. And God's calling us to know him, but he's also calling us to have relationship with him at the table, like with other people, with him. That's how Jesus does Bible study, man. Like, he wants to meet with you personally, and not just like, here, read this, memorize it. All right, now you know everything that there is. He deeply just wants that relationship. He wants to break that bread with us. It's no wonder that we hear the kingdom of God expressed as a wedding feast or a dinner party. In Revelation 19:6-9, we see firsthand that, like, the kingdom of God's going to have all these different types of people that, different tribes, nations, colors, whatever, we're all going to meet together at this banquet, and it's going to be this just amazing feast and party. I'm saying amazing a lot just because it's a describing word, It reminds me, I was recently at a wedding. My brother got married. He's younger than me, and it was an awesome day. We partied like no other. It was awesome, but something that stuck out, and what this reminds me of is like just how important the setup of a wedding reception is. It's elegant, it's quaint, it's kind of posh, but like it's important, like the bride and groom at their centerpiece of it, and then everyone that they love are on either side representing them, and then everyone else that they love are also at this party. They're all sitting, we're all at the same level, we're all communing and dining with each other. Words are spoken that are like beautiful. All this, I love this guy so much. The speeches and whatnot. You get what I'm saying. The toasts and the prayers and that's set up like that for a reason, I think. And I haven't picked it out too much, but it's just an amazing comparison. Like we see that famous painting, The Last Supper, where everyone's on the same side of the table. Well, I was like up there at that table, like seeing like how important it was to be like, man, I'm at this table with like my brother and the girl he loves and everybody, and I'm like, man, this is like kind of Last Supper-y, but the painting, but it clicked with me, like this is like an important event, and I'll never forget it because of how substantial it was. It's not just something that is just going to be forgotten. It's going to be something that's going to stick with me. And I think that's how, these little events and, how the table is really set up. It's incredible. The table also like heals relationships, and I know this firsthand. Back in 2017, I went through, like I said, a really rough patch during that year. Being young, you have a lot of friends, but friends can hurt sometimes. And I got stung a lot, a bunch of bees just going at me. And I didn't talk to many of my friends for quite a while, maybe like 8 months. Like I just stepped away and didn't really focus on them. All Christian people too. And what amazed me is God using the table to heal and reconcile all those relationships. I remember sitting down with one married couple for about 5 hours, dishing out things that we've been hurt by and reconciling and sharing stories and different things. And at the end of it all, we're like, this relationship is too important to us not to just get rid of. There was no like, oh, we're just gonna go our separate ways. It was, man, we've met this long because of how important it is, and how important our relationships were. And I think sitting down and experiencing that taught me a lot. And just after that first meeting, God began to do that in multiple different relationships in my life. And now, like we're all good. Like they all come to greater things. Like they're all part of the ministry. And I think it was purposeful for God to make those relationships stronger by having a coffee meeting or a dinner meeting or just things where he can use what he has created to relationally fix things. And that just closeness, that relational part of it is just something that God wanted to show me about who he was and who he wants to be to other people, right? And I'm almost done here, but God, I'll share, this is like the last of it. God shared with me like this vision that had to do with kind of like my childhood, and he showed me, like those Sunday mornings, those Saturday mornings, waking up for breakfast or dinner. My dad was calling me. It was this like vision or dream. My dad was calling me like, hey, come down, like it's time for dinner. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. And I just continued to do whatever. Play a video game or read a book, or I just saw me doing multiple things at once. and I was too busy to come to dinner. But I was telling my dad, like, yeah, I'm coming. But then when I finally came down, everyone was at the table, but everyone was done with dinner. There was just a leftover plate for me, and everyone was walking out. Food was no longer warm. It wasn't really good, and I was like, man, I missed out on something. And I was like, Lord, what does this mean? What does this vision mean? And he just basically said, he said, don't miss dinner when I call. And I'm like, man. So, my dad represented God in that, and I was too busy to come to the table. And when I got to the actual feast, it was over. I missed it. Food was cold. It was no longer good. And he was saying, don't miss what I'm calling you to. Don't miss out on dinner. Don't miss where you're getting fed. And I'm like, whoa, this is really big. This is so important for young adults to know and everyone to know is God's calling us every day to a dinner feast. And how much are we saying and putting off no, I'm too busy. I got this to do. I got that to do. And he's calling us to sit down, and feed on what he's prepared. I believe God is calling everybody or every one of us, to the table. And the question is, will we have a seat? Will we accept that invitation? Will we sit down with, our Lord and partake in a relationship instead of just trying to know more? That's kind of just the challenge today. Just think about those words. Think about, how important your table is. If you're in this boat or that boat where you're not using it properly, or you can see how important a meal with a friend or a lunch is. Taking that into account, not for granted. I'm still learning this process, and some of us need to get back in that swing too. Young people definitely don't take the table for granted. Have dinner with your parents. They know some stuff, even though they're annoying, or this, that, and the other. I've shared 1 or 2 meals with my own mom, and definitely it's life-changing stuff, So, and I'm willing to share a meal with anyone here too. Everyone's got a story. Everyone's got something to share with someone, and that's kind of what it empowers me and how I form the ministry I help run. Is that everyone's got something to share. Everyone has a little nugget of information or wisdom to be listened to, and it's not just, my ministry doesn't comprise of me just getting up there and talking for 45 minutes. It comprises of everyone getting a chance, which is kind of scary to some people, but sometimes I'm like, man, I just need to listen to someone today instead of me just constantly talking. If we're just having a regular conversation, you'll have to shut me up. I talk way too much, and my brain, at the end of the day, I'll walk out of somewhere or, be driving home, and I'm like, man, why did I say that? Well, I'm talking way too much. But people are really good listeners, so that's what I learned about people. And some people that are the more quiet ones are the ones that need to speak up, because they're the ones observing everything, that are actually listening to the voice of God. Meanwhile, the chatty people like me are too busy just telling what the Lord is doing instead of listening for what's next, So really, just, like I said, I was welcomed here, and I see the community is so strong, that I thought, I'm like, man, this message that I kind of have prepared, I feel like everyone already digs that. They already get together. They already have meals and stuff like that. But I encourage you just to keep going in that, and keep sharing those meals, keep inviting people to the table, keep going, because true community, people are going to want that. People out there, even in this community, I don't know what the atmosphere is like up here, but they deeply crave a sense of closeness and relationship that they're not getting. Because it's a whole social media war and battle out there, that the climate has changed spiritually, and it's becoming faster paced. But what I'm learning, even at a young age, is it's not about how fast we're going. It's about it's about just relationship. It's about taking your time. Life ain't a race. What are we racing towards? Death? Like, that's kind of lame, you know? We're all just, we're seeking more, and I think young people are feeling that nowadays. So, you know, share a meal with them. Like, they need it. It's not about the hurry. It's about, you know, just the steps taken. So, you know, that's really all I have. Should I pray?
Sure.
Sure, I'll pray for you guys.